it really is the receptivity and sincerity of all of you that is a large part of why we have this opportunity to have you here with us. So thank you for coming. Our flow is a little bit different today because I realize we have a little bit less time with you than we thought we would have. So we'll have about 90 minutes for Q&A, of which we'll begin with me starting off with Q&A. At the midpoint of that, we're going to have some of the volunteers who are plating go into the kitchen and start preparing the meal. And at that point, we'll also transition over to questions from all of you. And I'll be running the mic to allow your questions to be heard. So without further delay, thank you, Shriyam, for being here. So the first question I had for you is, there is this ancient concept from the Upanishads and the Vedas about the indivisible wholeness and completeness of everything, Purnamada, Purnavidam. And it implies that everything is whole, perfect, and complete as it is. And yet, most of us don't experience the world in that way, by seeing both suffering in ourselves and suffering in the world. So I'm curious to hear how you reconcile that, and whether it's possible for us to arrive at a state of feeling and experiencing the world as whole, perfect, and complete through just speaking about it or acting, or does it require an inner practice in order to reach that experience?
Well, so important question, that the ancients have said that there is something which is actually one, transcendental, and free of all pain and sorrow. But we see the world as different. Now, when you say the ancients said of course, but moderns also have experienced it sometimes, many places. What the ancients have said is not meant only for the ancients, but it's a universal truth. So it can be experienced any time, provided we learn how to turn around and look in the right way. I think that is important to note. As long as we remain caught up in our little petty self and all the time think only about ourselves, not real self, but ourselves as we are, it's a little difficult to break the barriers and look at things as they are. Okay, having said that, before I go further, it has been also said, and it is the experience of several great people, that this, once when one touches that experience, when this happens, then you don't see the division which you see when it has not happened. Whatever, we'll come to that, what happens. So, it's so, but it's not seen by us in our present situation. So when you see it, then you see that there actually is no dichotomy, because it is the same always. We see the dichotomy because of our pluralistic way of looking at things. And it starts first with me, mine, and you, yours, in the ordinary world, physical world. And then it stretches to my theory, your theory, my belief, your belief. Because beliefs are made by our minds, while the actuality need not be a belief. When there is a reality, it needs no belief. What belief do you need to say, for instance, that you are sitting in front of me? You are. I mean, if you believe your senses. You don't need any belief system. You're sitting in front of me, you're sitting in front of me. The belief systems are basically hypotheses. Somebody said, he may be right or she may be right, so I believe. But I believe it because I want to move towards it. When I go there, then there is no need of belief because I actually am face to face. So when this happens, then you realize that there is actually no dichotomy. The dichotomy is till you touch that point. Now, your question was quite elaborate. So the second part is this, can we move towards it, or what was the other thing?
Is it possible to just think or act our way into that experience, or do we require an inner contemplative practice?
Yeah. I think we can think our way to it until we begin to understand that all thought is limited. Yeah, till then you can go on this thought process thing, on and on, till you suddenly come face to face with the fact that whatever I think of the reality is what I think of the reality. It may not be the reality. And then what happens? When you find that this so-called wonderful brain of ours, which is a great thing, without which I won't be sitting here, we won't have this, I won't be talking to you. Right, I understand that. But when you come to realize ultimately, when you and I both, I'm not saying you, that this brain, this puny little human being with his so-called rational brain, is too limited to understand the limitless, which actually is our true essence. Then it ceases to grab or grasp or create ideas about it. And when these ideas are gone, then what remains is that. So there is a way of, but look at this. Suppose the thing that we are looking at, imaginary, right now speculating, that there is a being which is all-pervading and so on. No, we are thinking that there is an essence, the core of our being, which is somewhere, and we are here, and we are moving towards it. Now what happens if the ancients also said that that being is everywhere? Ishavashyamidam sarvam. Now if it pervades everywhere, you can't go to it. Rather, when all going stops, I'm talking about the mind, not the body. See, I think it's very simple, common sense. You're sitting here and I'm sitting here. I have to reach out to you. I need to move. What if you are also here sitting? Where do I move? I don't move. I have to recognize it's not me but you. So it's the thought process which you said can probably lead us there is the understanding that which we seek is here and now, and you don't need to go anywhere. And when the mind stops going here, there and everywhere and realizes that it is futile, and therefore can we sit quiet, not a single movement. If this is possible, then perhaps, as you said, we might be able to lead our thought processes by thinking about it. Thinking about it right. But from my understanding, thinking about it to figure out that it cannot be thought about. I'm not the only one who gets a little puzzled to explain this, because 2000 years ago, I don't know if it's 2000 or 1500, doesn't matter, don't worry about that. There is an Upanishad in which the Rishi is so perplexed about how to put this over to somebody that he says, Na vidmo na vijanimo yatha tat anushishya. I can't understand how to put this to you. But I think the very expression that I can't understand how to put this to you means that there is no actual thought process that can touch it. The thought process can go up to the level of saying, I have my limitations and I can't go beyond this. That much is possible. If this happens, then the mind stops racing up and down, trying to grasp, just keeps quiet, just sitting. In that quietness, there is a possibility that one might come about it, perhaps. The other example, if I may, yours and I hope you don't mind me elaborating. The other way of looking at it, little bit dualistic, is that although we are looking at probably the non-dual, the mind always functions in dualistic ways. The very fact that I say I want to find out about it is automatically divided. So, the other way of looking at it is, let's consider that what we are talking about, that essence, to be like the fragrance-laden breeze that blows around us. While we can't dictate when the breeze is going to blow, when it blows, if our windows and doors are closed, we will have no understanding of it. We won't sense it. So, there may be ways and means by which the windows and doors of the mind can be left open. Perhaps there are ways of doing it. One of these is humility, coming from the understanding that this mind is too puny to find it. It comes only when you understand this clearly. Then there is a humility which is not a play. It's not played out, it's real. Then you say, can't be done. I'm here and I can't do this. That if that is there, when that begins to come and you understand that you cannot dictate when the breeze blows, however, there may be ways and means to leave the windows and doors open, of which one is humility. The other is the understanding that we are too puny to understand. The finite trying to understand the infinite is by itself a contradiction. And the finite cannot be a combination of, the infinite cannot be a combination of finites. Then it's not infinite, it's a conglomeration of finites. Right. So, even understanding that is humility. So, you don't shut your windows with these ideas that you have about divinity. When you don't have the ideas, then the windows are open, the doors are open. Then perhaps it might come in when it comes. If our windows and doors are closed, it might not come in even if it's blowing across. So two. And the third perhaps is a little, carrying it a little too far, but I have found it useful, which is that this system of ours, the human system, it doesn't possess the capacity to one-pointedly delve into this question, because it is always distracted, disconnected, in conflict, mostly distracted in small things which we think are very important. It's also distracted by the number of philosophies that we have studied. You're packed tight in our head, almost sealed. So, if you understand this, that our energies are so dissipated and so distracted is the mind, that it cannot one-pointedly move in the direction of something which is very serious, which demands all our attention. It's not a hobby. I have other things to do, but to find that is my hobby, no. That becomes my major priority, and other things are not so important. Then, in that case, there have been you can start with the Upanishads, Katha Upanishad down, various prescriptions given by different teachers on how to gather the energies which have been dissipated. But perhaps when they are gathered, you have the capacity to one-pointedly, they say you have enough fuel to run the train into wherever you're going. Otherwise, in dissipation, all your energy and fuel is lost. So there may be methods of doing this. And these are the yogic methods, including where you don't actually exercise too much but watch your breath and so on. Awareness is one. So what happens in this? That your mind is not allowed to dissipate its energies, but to collect together. You go a step further, which of course may or may not be accepted, is that there is this prana, this energy in the human system, which is flowing through so many different channels. There's a way of bringing it together in one and making it move with complete one-pointed attention, so that finally you or I may fly away as free as the white swan. उड़ जाएगा पंछी अकेला. In fact, it's very interesting. उड़ जाएगा पंछी अकेला is Kabir. I'm not saying because you I love Kabir, you know that. It's very interesting because the word akela is very interesting. Panchi, of course, is a beautiful imagery of the bird breaking free of its cage and flying. But the akela, the akela meaning alone, is a beautiful pun on the word kaivalya in Yoga Sutras. Kaivalya is, you cannot translate kaivalya as moksha. You can translate kaivalya as alone. It comes from the Sanskrit root kevala, one. So you don't see many, you see only one, and you're this beautiful swan flying alone into the sky.
So when you and other people have touched that kind of an experience, including like Swami Vivekananda, the natural impulse is to say, that's great, let me just stay here and be enjoying my state of whole, complete bliss. And then I've heard that the response of all of your teachers has been, how selfish you guys have become. Go and do something to help other people. So what is the balance between this changing ourselves on the micro level to keep the doors and windows open versus using every step we make to also impact the broader system that we live in so that more people can...
I understand. You know, something, this freeing yourself from limitations, when it is translated into daily life, because we can only start from daily life. We can't just jump into abstract philosophy. We can only start. So when this is translated into action in daily life, then the more you are selfless, the better you are expanding towards it. And all service, or what we call seva, all service, is the recognition of the divinity of all individuals. And therefore, taking us away from this little petty little circle of only me and mine, coming out of it, the practical aspect, I think, is to see others as not too different from you, and therefore when they suffer, you're suffering. Let me put it this way. I look after my children. Great, wonderful. Because there are people who don't. So we are better than them, maybe. I should look after my children. Do you put something in there? They're saying can't hear. Maybe this way. It always happens. Not here. You can't hear now? Ah, yeah, I'm so sorry, then you didn't hear anything. I'm very sorry. At least now we can hear. What I said might be very important, but it's okay. We'll catch somewhere the thread. Yeah. So, yeah, I look after my kids, okay? It's a great thing because I know there are some people who don't look after the kids. Well, there are great beings who have walked out without worrying about their kids. That's a different question. We'll leave it. But I don't look after my kids. I look after my kids. I don't think it's a big deal. Monkeys look after their kids. Dogs look after their kids. It's built into the brain for survival biologically. I may do it in a different way because I'm more civilized. My frontal lobe is more developed, so I may do it in different ways. Monkeys don't buy candies for the kids, I know that, but they don't take them for movies, but they entertain them in some way. So it's not a very big deal. If I say, okay, I'm looking after somebody else's kid, maybe my neighbors, maybe somebody, big deal. I've expanded a little. Now, if I stretch that and say, I would like to look after as many people as possible in this world, then I'm growing. Now to say that philosophically I understand that I must get out of my center, but physically I am still the selfish old fellow, then it makes no sense. So service is the practical way by which you can actually thaw your mind and break the limitations. I think it's very important, side by side. Otherwise there will be no yama niyamas before dhyana. The major aspect of yama niyamas is kindness and care.
You also talk about, you were talking about collecting energies through these practices, of which Kriya Yoga is one. And the aim of this is to sort of activate this subtle energy and awaken it. Can you talk about the relationship between breath, awareness, and Kundalini? And is Kundalini just feeling and awareness, or is it something else? What is it?
I'm reminded of a video, not a video, it became a video later, of J. Krishnamurti. I knew him for some time, sitting in Ohio somewhere, and somebody gives him a piece of paper of questions, and one of the questions says, what is the Kundalini? Has it awakened in you? And what are the yogic? So he just takes the paper, puts it down, and he says, God, from the sublime to the ridiculous. I'm not saying that. But so I think it was a little bit unkind to say that, So anyway, you're right. You see, I speak about that. I agree with you because that has been my tradition. And the word Kundalini, let us handle that first before we get into this. The word Kundalini, you would find in my talks or my writings or whatever. I hardly ever use that word. The reason being that it's a word which has been much bandied about and misused. Today you go to the internet, you can awaken your Kundalini for $2,000 or less in 3 days. I think this is ridiculous. You're talking about something so sacred. It's not some kind of a stupid gymnastics. You know what I mean? So it's actually it means the word used in the tantric text. When I say tantric, let's not get into this, that tantra means some kind of orgies, night-long orgies. No. Tantra is, yoga tantras are the inner psychic aspects of yoga. One of the best textbooks, if you do want to read, instead of reading some internet literature, is to read the Satchakra Nirupana, which was translated by Sir John Woodroffe, with the title Serpent Power. This is where the Kundalini, serpent, everything came into the English language first. Anyway, so the energy is actually, it's represented by a snake, but please, there is no snake out there. Yeah, people say, I saw the snake. I said, "Wait," I thought it was in the garden when they said, you visualize the snake if you want, and if you visualize, it may feel like a snake. There is no snake sitting under the spine. This is funny. There is nothing like that. Okay. So why was the snake used as a symbol? Because in the ancient times, in the olden days when the symbolism came out, snake was considered a symbol of wisdom. You'll see Shiva sitting with a snake. You'll see the pharaohs with a snake on their heads. So it was considered a symbol of wisdom. One. It was because of the wisdom that Adam and Eve had to go down. A snake came and whispered to me, "Eat the apple of knowledge." So it has always been considered as a symbol of wisdom. Plus the fact that in those days there were no clocks which could be wound. There were no quartz clocks, but there were also no clocks which could be wound. And the only way somebody could talk about an energy which is potentially there and not awakened in most people, activated, is by the symbol of the snake, which when it has finished eating, it usually rolls up and lies down. You poke it with a stick and it raises its hood, hisses and goes up. So this was a perfect symbol of energy wound up and dormant and then aroused when it is aroused. So this energy which we are talking about is not just a small little energy sitting under the spine. It's the universal energy, what in Tantra is called Parashakti, the ultimate energy, from which this entire universe has come about, which is the cause and the mechanical reason for the movement of everything. When this energy is not active, Shiva is just quiet. There's nothing. I mean, in the symbology of Tantra, Shiva is, in fact they say that if you take I, which stands for Shakti, E, from Shiva, Shiva is a Shava, dead body. Spell Shiva without I. So, Shiva means that which is absolutely quiet in this context, please. And Shakti is that which is the active part of this energy. So it's a universal energy. It's that energy which is in the little atom, in the molecules, in everything that we do. When you plant a seed and it grows into a tree, it's this energy. And it is the same energy which in the form of a child makes us feel that we are continuing our life. Right? How do human beings continue their life? We all like to be immortal, but we can't physically be immortal. So how do we guarantee that? Have a child. Our genes are there, so it's kind of immortal. Somewhere. So that is also this energy, because of this energy. And for human beings, now this is what Tantra is talking about, and it's nothing very strange. For human beings, once you have food and shelter and comfort, what is the thing that attracts the most, if you're young especially? Sex. Everybody desires. Whether you want to have a child or not, that's not the problem. The very instinct is so powerful that people are ready to move mountains or oceans to touch it. It's so important. And we say that this energy is also that desire to expand, to procreate, to have joy. And what happens at the end of a sexual act, I hope you don't mind talking about it. A sexual act, for instance. What is the last, when an orgasm happens, what happens? For a second, split second, there is no thought. One can't think. One is completely gone. Because one is gone, there is this wonderful ecstasy and fulfillment. We are saying this energy is also responsible for that. Okay. And having entered the system, it is responsible for making a walking, talking, speaking human being, duplicate, out of us, from a small speck of semen. This energy is responsible. But after doing its work, it still remains dormant without losing a single megaton of its energy. Therefore, it's called the Kula Kundali, which is loosely translated as Kundalini. Tantric terminology is Kula Kundali. So this is the energy, Shakti, Tara, whatever you want to call it. It has been visualized in many ways. Bhadrakali or Shanta Durga. So this is the energy. And actually it is the basic energy in all of us. All our drives, all our thoughts, everything is this energy. We are saying that we use very little of this energy for our physical needs and mental needs. We are saying therefore we touch the surface of that energy. We are asking the question, can we go to the root of this energy, come to the fountainhead of this energy and touch the source from which this energy comes, so that this dormant energy is then active. And when it becomes active, awareness rises from the gross to the subtle, to the subtle, to the subtle, until it breaks free and touches that which is beyond. This is the whole teaching about this energy. And the good news is that everybody has it. Young or old, man or woman, blonde or dark-haired, everybody has it. So it's a question of, is it active or not? Now when you say active, it doesn't mean that suddenly something happens and you're in... No. It can be activated even quietly. When an artist or a musician or a great scientist is free of all distracting thoughts and his energy, he kind of enjoys the ecstasy of it. Then that is also Kundalini. Kundalini need not necessarily bring about some kind of external symptoms in you. It happens if your nerves are weak, otherwise it won't. It can be very silent, it can be like the river that flows.
Last year when you were here, I asked you the question about spirituality being whether it's caught or taught. And caught or taught. And you said it's a little bit of both. And in that time, since last year, I see more and more people engaging with you in a different kind of way. Some just trying to be around you and hoping they catch your bugs. Other people, and two flavors, a sort of a Western celebrity sort of a thing, and then an Eastern bow down, trip, make you trip over them kind of a thing. And so the question is, what's the
I like this frankness, thank you.
What's the right way to make use of the time that we have with you? What's a good question? What qualifies as a good question? And I say that because soon we're going to open it up to everyone, and I want to make sure that we use our time to ask good questions.
Okay. Now, in the East, for instance, from India and some other parts of the East, there is this thing that if you be with a teacher, and if he's a teacher, I'm not talking about myself, if you be with a genuine teacher, even if you don't speak, if there are no words exchanged, it's possible to get something if your minds are in close contact, not only physical. It's usually misinterpreted as physical, but it's actually the minds. Okay? Of course it's true that when there is a physical entity, then it's easier for the mind to engage. I understand that. But one should understand that it is not the physical thing. But mind can, your frequency of your mind and the frequency of my mind are kind of if you keep here, I can't speak. The Kundalini will start speaking. Okay. I think that's good. So if the frequencies of both minds are going in the same level, the wavelengths are same, then it's possible that without uttering a single word, something might pass. It's not so much physical. I'm completely against this idea that you should wash your guru's feet and drink it and all this. I think it's rubbish. What if he has a skin disease? So it's nonsense. So I think the idea is to keep your mind in rapport with the teacher. This sometimes happens when you're together. I agree with you. However, what one should remember is that it is the mind that is more important than the body. So, seva has two aspects. One is if you have a pain in the leg, somebody might massage you. Okay. But when they're massaging you, they're thinking of something else, so it may not work. But if they, while massaging, say, oh, I hope something happens to my mind, then it can help. I've had this experience in a different way with my teacher, Maheshwarnath Babaji. While wandering with him here and there, I found sometimes we were talking about, I don't know, he was an expert in many subjects. So we were talking about tea, for example. Tea, chai. And one day we had a nice discussion on the different kinds of tea and where it comes from. And I was so fascinated by it that I was completely absorbed in it. After 10 minutes, I said, hey, Babaji, I got what you were saying yesterday. He said, I was talking about tea. I said, yeah, I know. Because there was something he said which I couldn't grasp exactly. But when he was talking about this, and I was not trying hard to grasp it, it sort of it grew out of it. I don't know how to say this. So this is there, of course. But the danger is, I think when a person's mind is settled down and he or she has a lot of energy inside, usually soothing energy, not wild energy, but soothing energy. Since the world is always looking for something soothing, because we're caught up in this tumultuous existence, there's a possibility that it may attract people. Not even the words. Not even the words. And the danger is then to make that person's physical presence more important than what he or she is trying to say. There is that danger. We have to be careful about this. Especially, I get several love letters. I mean, not in that sense, but so how do I maintain a balance in the midst of this? I have to know that this is just because somebody is attached to the physical system and not looking at the realities. So I have to. It's a walking on the razor's edge. You know what I mean. So you're right. A lot of more people have come, and on the one hand there is this traditional thing of serving the teacher, being around. But I think more important is to listen to what one is saying and try to figure out what is this guy trying to say. Well, I don't want to dishonor or dissuade people when they really want to serve you. I always keep reminding them that this is not so important. The most important thing is to listen to what I'm trying to say and try to figure it out for yourself. If you need help, I'm there. Very often the easier thing becomes more popular and the difficult thing becomes less popular. This is the problem.
With that, we will transition to the questions that you guys might have, and folks who are plating, now is the time to step into the kitchen. And in case you guys, if any of the platers have questions, maybe you can ask your question first. But if not, this will only take a few minutes, so you can always come back for that. So we only have this mic that's sort of attached to me, and so I will move around and come to you for the questions that you have. And you can read your questions aloud. You want me to read it?
Yes.
All right. Wow, we got 8 questions right here. Okay.
Oh, already written down.
Yeah, already written down. So it says, Sir, you've said previously, if destiny is supreme, there is no meaning in human life or human effort. Yet in your autobiography, you have been told by various great masters about your own destiny unfolding from life to life. Please explain this.
First of all, the second part of the question, I have not been told by the masters how my life is unfolding. Rather, I have remembered how my life unfolded. That's the right, actual, accurate thing. Nobody said how your life is going to unfold. Rather, having gone through different lives, if you believe in different lives, then I have remembered it, of how this has happened. Not that I knew beforehand what was going to happen. If I knew beforehand what was going to happen, I would not have done any sadhana. So it's a very dangerous thing to peg your life on the word destiny. Move out, do some work, get to it. This is, if you want more on this, read this wonderful book called Yoga Vasishta. There is fortunately a beautiful translation of Yoga Vasishta by Swami Venkateshananda. Very nice translation in English. I think it's worth reading it because Yoga Vasishta manages to demolish all nonsense that we hold in our hearts generally and goes clear. It is very interesting that it's a teaching given to Rama himself when Rama is depressed. Can you believe that? And he says to Rama, now you ask your questions. I want to free you from this depression you're going through. So Rama asks questions. Vasishta discusses it with him, answers some. Of course, in between he says, oh, this is a silly question, can we move? But, I think Vasishta also can get impatient sometimes. So, but it's a wonderful textbook to read, and there is a big discussion on destiny and work. Beautiful discussion. I think you should go into it. When I say work is more important than destiny, I am not completely denying that there is a blueprint. See, after all, today you and I sitting here are the result of millions of years of genetic evolution. You can't deny that. And therefore we carry much things from the past. And that decides kind of a blueprint that we have. We can't change our genes. Okay, agree. Having said that, we also have a lot of freedom to work. And the greatest freedom that everybody has, no matter what his genes, is to find the ultimate. Nobody is barred from it, no genity, no destiny, nothing. This is something which is open to everybody, if we are seriously interested. That's the caveat.
So,
also have a little tea.
Yeah.
It's okay, you can ask.
I don't want to just focus on all the questions from the card. So if there are questions back here, please do raise your hand. But one of them is, many questions arise in the mind. How to know which questions deserve serious resolution?
Now this is difficult for me to say, except I think that the most serious question would be, I am at the moment in conflict. Sorrow comes and goes. I feel very uncomfortable. This world is mostly selfish. How do I come out of this and try to find stability in this unstable world and be free of this constant blitz of sorrow that keeps coming up? When such questions are asked, I think they are more important questions that we should ask. Because other questions, like how do I find a good job because I have tried so many times, I'm a failure, this should be asked to a career specialist or to a psychiatrist. I can't answer this. I'm not an expert on this. But the problem is in India, people think, I think it's slowly spreading to the West, that a guru or a spiritual person knows everything about everything. Not true. Nobody is omniscient. I may know something in one field, you may know something else better than me. You see that? But unfortunately it is there. So people come for everything. What can you do? You can't cut them off. So you say, okay, let's think about, do something.
Linda has a question.
In my house, in my kitchen, we have mice. They've quite invaded. And so actually we have like really serious issue with a lot of mice poop in the place where we make food. So ultimately I just, after trying to plug up some holes and stuff, I just went and got mouse traps and I killed some mice. Then I saw them. They were kind of small and cute, and I felt sort of bad about it. A couple of them, I took them out and gave them a funeral. The other ones I threw in the garbage. Then I went and got a live mouse catching trap, so that I could not kill them. But it didn't work. Okay. They were too smart.
Okay.
This morning I killed another one. I just wondered...
This is the question that I have to answer?
Yeah. I wonder really about killing the mice who are kind of bothering me. What?
There are two ways out. There are only two ways out in this situation. Either you kill the mice and forget about it, or you say, it doesn't matter how many mice come, I'm going to live with it. There are no two ways. There's no one way. There are only two ways out. Either we have to say that in the process of living, I need to kill the mice, there is no other way. Otherwise I can't cook, I can't survive. Or I might say, doesn't matter the mice come or go, I'm going to carry on with my life. There are two ways of looking at it. There have been some people who actually live that way too, but it is not easy to do that in the present circumstances. So the thing is, if you have done it, don't carry it on your mind. You've done and leave it there. Don't again think, oh, did I kill that mice? But try to find out ways and means to avoid them.
To what?
Avoid. Avoid the mice.
Avoid the mice.
Yeah, there's only way. You can't. I don't know how. What else to tell you? I can give you an example of a great Sufi saint whose name was Mia Mir, who used to live in Punjab in the old days. In fact, when the golden temple of the Sikhs was built and Arjan Singh was asked who will lay the first brick, he said, please go request Mia Mir if he would come and lay the first brick. So, he was a great saint. And he had a problem. He had a wound on his leg. He had a wound. A boil which had become rather big, and wound, and it was almost like septic, and there were maggots inside. Now look at this man. He wouldn't kill the maggots. He wouldn't let anybody do any antiseptic. There were no antiseptics, medicines. And he sat there under the tree. Sometimes he had excruciating pain when he would shout with pain. Other times he would be fine. And there was a crow that used to come and eat the maggots. And every now and then he used to say, I think the crow is hungry, and feed the maggots to the crow. He was looking after the crow, he was looking after the maggots. But it's difficult for people to do. I am not so advanced, I might have got rid of the maggots with antibiotics. So, I can't answer this question, sorry.
You think you would kill the mice?
Well, let me tell you what happened. In Madanapalli, where I live, after some years, there were these little mice who used very tiny fellows, cute fellows. And they multiplied so much that they used to swing on my curtains. Now, I let them be for some time. When I came back after 4 months from traveling somewhere, I found there was not a single mice there. So I asked several people, they said, we don't know, we don't go into your house. So there's only one guy, 2 people who have access to my house. One is my cook, and the other is my man Friday, who is in Madhya. His name is Vijay. So I asked him what happened, Vijay. And he said that it was such a nuisance, they come into the kitchen all the time. So I decided to kill them all. So how did you kill them? He said, oh, it's very simple. I caught them and smashed them. I said, just 1 minute, Vijay, but why? He said, then what to do? I mean, I could help it. So I said, okay, we'll watch. If the mice come back, then we need to work out some other plan, not this. But they didn't come back. Till today I don't have a single mouse in there. I don't know what happened. They got frightened and ran away, or they decided that I shouldn't indulge in killing them. I don't know. Kind mice. But this is a fact. It has happened to me in my house. And now she says there are mice in her house. She's built a house in Madhya, hoping to get my moksha by being there physically.
I think Chris has a question, but she has to come away from the speaker, so there's no feedback. Oh, would you like to make the announcement?
The platers are just wondering if anyone does not take onions on their food. If so, please raise your hand. Does anyone not take onions? Okay, so by default we'll add onions. And there's also a car that's blocking the driveway that someone needs to get out.
What car is it?
It's a BMW, probably.
White?
The last car in the driveway.
Yeah. So we got that taken care of. So there's a question about prayer. Prayer on the yogic path. And really there's a bunch of questions in there, but I think the overarching question is just, can you explain prayer? Does it work? Who are we praying to, and what's the point of that?
No, most people in times of emergencies, when you are in real trouble and when you see no help anywhere, tend to pray, looking towards a superior being who might help us. Most people do that. I used to do that. I don't know. So, because of 2 reasons. One is, this Supreme Being that we are talking about, to whom we are praying, is nowhere to be searched for outside, because it is also inside us. And if he or she is inside us, and we call the Antaryami, the inner being, then that being knows what we need more than we do, even before we do. You don't have to tell, this is what I want. That being knows. Right? So, to call on that being and say, I want this or I want that, it's like saying, oh, you don't know, I'm telling you. But then if you think that being is omniscient, then the very fact of praying to that being and saying, this I want, that I want, this I don't want, is an aberration to this fact. So, if at all you pray, as what you do, is, I would say, close your eyes, think that the being is inside and say, you know everything. Because sometimes you're helpless, you want to change situations. You say, you know everything, do what you think is right for me. Because what I think is right for me may not be right for me. In the long scheme of evolution, it may be something else. So all I can say is, do what you think is right so that I evolve in the right direction. I think that would be a great prayer. It would also be a prayer of utter surrender, because I know that I'm not trying to. I'm asking, you know everything, please take charge.
So is it just the act of humbling ourselves and becoming receptive that allows?
Yeah, like for instance, in the Buddhist system, actually there are no gods. I mean, there is no one God sitting there. But they pray to many deities, right? Why do they pray to many deities? Because there is the human tendency to ask. It's better to ask a deity than to ask a human being. So they ask, that's all right. But from my point of view, I would say that the best thing to do is to think, to understand that supreme reality in every human being is the spark, inner divine spark, the antaryami. And to say that you know everything, what have I to say? So guide me in a proper way, which is right for me. This is a good prayer.
Ram has a question, and it's not about Sri Vidya, actually. So
Actually,
Oh, it is? No.
actually, in front of public, I won't admit. I won't ask you. I won't ask you that again.
No. You can ask, but I can always keep quiet.
Because people are replacing my name with Sri Vidya. Whole world knows.
Okay.
So when they said
Or I'm responsible for that. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, whatever you decide.
Okay.
When people are asking about prayer, there's one clarification that I wanted, just to help me. Because sorry for selfish question.
No.
A lot of times I read some books and I have so many questions. I hear somebody say something, but a lot of times when I do the Kriya and then sit in silence, sometimes I do Hangsa, there is some sort of peace engulfs. Usually when I chant, which I love the form of Krishna, something, even that ceases for some reason. I mean, that's my experience.
Okay.
All the questions, I don't want to know about them. My feeling at that point is, I don't want to have to know all this.
Okay.
This is good.
Okay.
In the chanting, the prayers, everything seems to
You enjoy it. Let's
enjoy.
put it that way.
Is that the right thing? What should I do at that time? I just
Enjoy it. What is there to do? Enjoy it.
No chanting.
Don't ask for anything.
No,
Just enjoy it. You're getting better than what you would have asked for, so enjoy it.
No need for any chanting or any specific.
Chanting?
Yeah.
See, much of the chants, if you go into the Sanskrit chants, are not even prayers. They're invocations to the inner divinity. They're not even prayers to some being. What is this prayer from the Upanishad? Purnamada Purnamidam. Are you asking anything?
No.
No. What is the meaning of this chant? Sahana bhavatu, sahana bhunaktu. Are you asking anything? You ask only when you're a beggar. You're a king. You're not a beggar. What will you ask? So enjoy the chant. It's beautiful. If somebody chants praise to the sun or the Gayatri or something, enjoy it. It's a beautiful chant. The sound itself is beautiful. It brings about some change in the system. Not just the meaning of it, even the sound. Because it's been set in that way, like music has an effect on you in the same way. So enjoy it. Don't ask. The only thing you can ask perhaps, which is a positive thought, is, may I always enjoy this. Yeah. That's a good prayer.
Good morning. In breathing and in paying attention,
Yeah.
there's inhalation
Yes.
and exhalation.
Yes.
They seem to be affiliated with different states.
Yes.
In one state, it seems that it's easy to inspire into upwards. In another state, it seems to be blissful.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, these things come and go,
Yeah.
and they're not the real.
Yes.
And we have these bodies, and they have all these experiences.
Yes.
We have insights and samadhis, and we do these practices, yet what really changes? We have these experiences, but the real in us cries out to manifest, to serve, to manifest, to be here. Why do we do these things?
If I may answer this question in a different way, if by doing all this, the reality which you talk about, which is in us, is not being expressed or manifested, then all these practices are rubbish. They are of no use. If they lead you on to the awakening of that which is the truth, then they are useful. Otherwise, they are absolutely... So what I am trying to say is, don't mistake the technique for the goal. The goal is something and the technique is something. Technique, if it fails to take you towards the goal, abandon it. Let it go. Otherwise, you'll be caught up with doing breathing. First of all, we must understand that the divine is not so stupid that it likes flattery. Flattery.
Practice.
Flattery. Flattering. Praise. In this outside world, it's very easy to catch somebody by praising them. Oh, you're the most wonderful fellow in the world. They would love you. But you can't do that to the Supreme Being because it's not amenable to flattery. You can't also curse and abuse that being, expecting that I can pressurize him to reveal himself. We can't do both of these things. So what can we do with the practices is to try to silence the mind and not get it distracted. If any practice doesn't go with this, then it is of no use. It may be useful for your health, physical health. You may be able through some pranayam to keep yourself free of stress for a temporary period of time. All that is good. There are good uses for it. But if it doesn't go to the ultimate, then it's not useful for you if you are interested only in that.
I'm only interested in finding out.
Right. So in that case, some practices may help you to keep your mind from being distracted by other things. Yes. So do only that much, minimum, the bare minimum. Don't get too complicated with it. Just do the bare minimum. But that the desire for that which you have so seriously, you should not allow it to get diluted by any outward experiences, including visions and so on. Going? They are impatient. She tried her best.
Sir? It's me.
Yes.
What is the relationship between stilling the mind and changing the pineal gland and the pituitary?
I can't hear you when you did
What is the relationship between stilling the mind and making the changes in the brain that need to happen before you can actually realize?
When your mind has become still, when I say still, not unconscious. When we are not aiming to make your mind unconscious. There is somewhere along the line this notion that we should become completely thoughtless. You cannot become completely thoughtless because when I say I am thoughtless, I am thinking. It's not that. You can make a mind quiet and as quiet as possible and one-pointed to understand what we are seeking. You can do up to that, which is a good thing. It needs to be done. When only that happens, can the brain begin to access that which is beyond ordinary thinking. So this is a good step to keep your mind quiet. I didn't say thoughtless, to keep your mind quiet and tranquil. When you say keep your mind quiet and tranquil, you still are there as a witness. You're not gone anywhere. Because if you think the aim of all meditation is to have no thought at all, then you can acquire it by hitting somebody's head with a crowbar. In 2 minutes you're out. There's no thought. No, we're not aiming at that. we're aiming at quietening the mind and make it as silent and tranquil as possible, with just the awareness there. I'm there, of course, I'm not gone anywhere. But that awareness slowly transforms itself into the witness, which is not you or me, but something beyond. So that is the takeoff point. This is why Patanjali defines yoga as yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the stilling of the distractions of the mind stuff. My translation. Actually it's true, look at the words. Yoga is chitta, the mind. When I say mind, what does it mean? The movement of thought, which is mostly distractions. Vrittis are the distractions. Nirodha, to stop. I use the word still instead of stop. It's not much different from still water and soda water.
So try to say this clearly, but so I'm wondering, like kind of with two things we said that there is a divine inside of us, and then the stillness of the mind. So I'm often wondering what to do in between those spaces where I live. So I noticed that so is it true that in the stillness of the mind we can only like hear what is bigger than what is in us that wants to be expressed, and then when you're, this sounds nice, but
difficult.
But mostly I'm wondering, as I'm trying to still my mind, how do I live with the knowing that there's something greater that perhaps wants to animate me, and then there's the discomfort of that. Like, so is there a way to be in between when you're learning to still the mind, and you're wondering, how can I most closely touch that as what's greater in me that wants to be expressed?
Yeah. While you theoretically understand these matters, what we discussed just now, and while we live in this daily life of practical existence in the midst of this tumultuous world we live in, if you can, as far as possible at all given moments, keep this in mind, that what we are seeking is actually this and not that. It comes after a great deal of effort. If you can keep it on, this is, I would call it awareness. I don't think mindfulness is merely sitting and closing your eyes and being mindful of your body and your breath and so on, which is part of mindfulness, I agree. But outward mindfulness is when at every outer act, while we live in this world, are we mindful of how we are dealing with it? I think both of these things have to go side by side. Then it's possible that the link is established. Like for instance, I can sit for 1 hour, meditate and be aware of my inner reactions. Like, okay, I can watch my breath and be aware of the breath. I can do many things. It's not easy, but through practice it will come, of course. But can it be also translated to our daily life? Where before we talk to somebody, are we aware what is the motive with which I am saying this? Then life becomes clear. Do I sit peacefully in meditation? And as soon as I leave the meditation and go out to drive my car, am I a violent man? That's what. Because if your mind has really become still and quiet and tranquil, then you will not be violent there too. It can't be only in one place. You see what I mean? Like I said this example the other day in Mount Madonna, that if I meditate in a cave and say I'm free of anger, it makes no sense. Even if I meditate for 6 hours in a cave and say I'm not angry, I'm not an angry, it makes no sense. When I come out and get into the bus or go to the marketplace and somebody kicks me on my foot, then I know where I stand. So, you know what I mean? So, we have to also be watchful in our activities to see where we are going. If both these can be combined, it's ideal. And then perhaps one day you might say, oh hell, this was always there, what the hell am I looking for? And it's a very peculiar thing if it happens. And then once it's touched, I think you find it outside and also inside. It's not as if it's confined to the inside. I have rarely seen a picture maybe here and there, of Ramana Maharshi with his eyes closed. There's no question of going in or out. The inner and the outer were the same. Unfortunately, it can only be found by going to the inner first. Can't be found, you know what I mean. Once found, maybe you see it outside also.
Chris.
Thank you. I have two related questions. The first, I'm just learning about Jyotish.
About?
Is that Jyotish?
Oh, you're asking
Jyotish.
the wrong person. I think it's Bankam. Anyway.
Well, I guess that answers that. Maybe the second question will give more context. The second question is, what's the difference in terms of wanting to live an aligned life with a more universal unfolding? What's the difference between trying to manipulate circumstances and putting in your best effort?
I wouldn't use the word manipulating because it has a bad meaning to it. I would say to change or adjust to situations so that you can find a more meaningful life. But different people have different ideas about a meaningful life. The monk thinks that the meaningful life is to leave the world and meditate. The worldly man thinks that meaningful life is to live in this world and do your work. And there are people in between these two categories who say that while living in this world, I should also try to find the divine. This depends on your attitude. And I don't think all are same. There are different people, different thinking in different ways. For the man who has, or the woman, who has the mentality of a monk, or a nun, it's difficult for them to adjust to this world. So that's okay. I won't say it's a wrong way or anything of that kind. And there are some people who cannot become monks. It's impossible. A real monk is a very difficult situation. To be a real monk. What does a monk do? Beg for his food. That's why it's called a bhikshu. What is bhaksha? Begging. So that brings also your ego down to a great extent. So, and living with almost nothing. Now this is, if it is possible, it's a great thing, but it is difficult under the circumstances in the modern world to lead that kind of a life. Otherwise what happens? We become bhikshus and then we have huge organizations and we build big temples. So what kind of bhikshu are we? Whatever food you want is brought to you, so what kind of bhikshu? Bhikshu is one who begs for his food, who leads a simple life, who has a hut where he lives. So that's one way of life, but well, some people can aspire to that. That's okay. But there are others who live in this world who still have a spiritual earning. For them I think, I wouldn't use the word manipulate, but use the resources to lead a meaningful life, help others, make your mind clean. At some time you may go to that place where you... There's nothing wrong either way. I'm a married man myself. So I should normally have defended married people. I don't. Because I also defend monks. That's a different way of life. They're lazy guys, so they left. I said, sorry, a monk's life is not a lazy life. It's a difficult life. It's not easy. When I was young, I led a monk's life almost. I've seen Maheshwarnath Babaji, who was a monk. I mean, he was unmarried. He didn't have any paraphernalia of any order. Yeah, of course, he was a Nath, so he had those rings. But I have lived with him, and I saw how he lived. Very difficult. But maybe gradually you begin to enjoy it. The mind is such an adaptable thing that if you try hard, you can put it into a certain design and then be happy with it. It's when you try to break that design that the whole problem starts. You know what I mean?
We probably have time for a couple more, so we will go here first.
Are the 33 Vedic gods a reference in part to 33 parts of the spine, brain and nervous system? And when we do samyam on different parts of our... Okay.
No. This is some kind of a story which has gained popularity. Yeah, nothing like that. 33 crores is not an exact number.
Not crores, 33. Just the 33.
This I have not heard of.
The 12 Adityas, 8 Vasus.
Oh, that way.
That's only the 33, not 33
Yeah, but
crores.
you don't have to connect it to the spine in any way. There's no need to. The problem is people like to connect and prove them. Like somebody is going around with the idea saying, Jesus is Hanuman. Why? Why can't Hanuman be Hanuman and Jesus be Jesus? Why do we have to bring them together and say this is the same? You know what I mean? So, if they have the 22 gods like Aditya, they need not be necessarily connected to the spinal cord or anything of that kind.
Thank you. Hello. I had read Autobiography of a Yogi, and after I read it, I became really sad and depressed thinking
Why?
that... Yes, I know, it's strange, right? Thinking about like the purpose of life, one of the purposes of life is to attain enlightenment or a higher state of consciousness, and that I will most likely not attain that in this lifetime, and I haven't in probably many lifetimes, and will not attain it in future lifetimes, and so has probably everybody in this room, and if you look out at society as a whole, they will not attain it. And I think, like, what is the purpose? Like, what is the purpose of being born over and over again to bounce back from happiness and suffering and not have access to a teacher every day to help you attain that? And it becomes depressing to me to think that I will keep going that way over and over again, struggling.
So let me ask you one thing. Are you questioning the facts there, or are you talking about how difficult it is for you?
I think I'm just questioning in general in life, like, why are we born? Like, I can't wrap my brain around it. I can't figure it out. Like, why are human beings born over and over again and to struggle over and over?
What if I say that human beings may be born again and again, but there is a way of getting out?
And I believe that. I absolutely believe that. And that's what I struggle about is, but why over and over and over and over thousands of times? Like, I guess I just want it now. Like, why not this lifetime? Why not everybody?
Now, wait a minute. I think your idea should be to do it in this lifetime.
Yes.
Don't think of the many lives that are coming or the many lives you've gone through. Try to make it urgent and say, I have to do it now. There's no time. Mm-hmm. Okay? But why be depressed about it?
It just seems so difficult. It's like, where do you get the knowledge? Where do you get the teacher? I've invited 10 people to come with me today, and nobody came. And I'm like, nobody's interested. And I just think people don't have access to that. And
I think people have access.
They do have access to it, but I don't see it as like a large spreading.
Okay. I have a prescription for you.
Yeah.
Do you live close by?
It took me an hour and a half to get here. Yeah.
Can you come every week and sit here and meditate for a while? No, I'm just because I'm not around. So I'm asking. Is here they have this every day. They sit down and do the mindfulness. They do meditate. Can you just start by trying? I think you should start with something practical, so that you feel, yeah, I'm doing something, and not speculate on, oh, how am I going to do this? I think it's possible. I don't think you have such a bad past life. I don't know. Maybe not. So just sit down every day and start something practical, like going within yourself and trying to see, be aware of what's happening inside, and that may take you away from that despair, that depression, to something positive. In fact, the whole thing about this search is that it takes you from hope to hope, not from depression to we need to look at it in a little more positive way. I think you can. Start by sitting down and saying, I'm going to do it now. I'm not going to wait for many lives. I'm depressed. I can't do this. Let me do it now. And start looking within and trying to find the source of joy inside. Nobody knows. You might find it fast. Who knows?
And I do. I guess I just want it so instant, part of the culture. I just want it now. Yeah.
You want what?
I just want it now.
You want it now?
Yes.
So you should find it
like
now.
instant oatmeal. Yes. Thank you.
That's great. What you said now, I'm more interested in that than what you said before. That you want it now.
Yeah, it's not like a true depression. I just want it now. Like I just want it now.
Good. So work towards it. Don't waste time now. Work towards it. Take the practical steps required, of which one, most important, is to find a time every day to go within. To explore within. As you have already explored so much of the outside world, why don't we start this beautiful journey?
These words were spoken to me once. Watch your motive.
Watch your
Keep
motive.
your motives pure. What's the purest motive?
No, I can't choose and moralize on what is the purest motive. But I can only say that if you watch your motives, you will, not you, we see that most of it is for ourselves. You watch what we are doing. You want to help somebody? Not you, I'm saying. We want to help somebody. We give charity. And when you give charity, what do you want? We want our name put in a plaque. Motive. Right? We go to a spiritual teacher. Sometimes I find people going to spiritual teachers not so much to understand what to do, but to show them what they know. What's your motive? Why are we doing this? So I'm not saying for you, I'm saying generally. So I can't tell you all the motives, but when I mean by before you perform an action, just for a minute watch your mind and say, why am I really doing this? And if you ask me, is there a purest motive? I think the purest motive would be to find the truth. And if you have found it, perhaps to teach others as much as you can. If somebody is ready to listen.
With that, we will probably close, but we like to end our time similar to the way we start it, except which is in silence. But this time it'll be 2 minutes of just gratitude for all of the causes and conditions that have allowed this day to happen, whether it was the many people who cooked or helped or arranged or did things yesterday and long before that. So we'll just hold 2 minutes in gratitude. And there will be the second gong will end our 2 minutes. Thank you. Shriyam, Pancho, is there something that you've got? Do you have something? Did you bring something? Yeah, there's a little something that Pancho would like to offer you to take back to Madanapalli as just a citizen of the world, someone who breaks down boundaries. There's this flag. You wanna talk about it a little bit, Pancho?
Sure. At some point, there was value on creating these imaginary lines that humans draw in the dirt in our hearts. But now, these days, this just is obsolete.
Time to break it.
Yeah.
If it is.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a fractal. It needs to start right here, and it's with that dissolving of that anatta, right? That dissolve, that disintegrating. So this is a beautiful reminder, because if you see all the flags that are out there are just symbols, but this is the ultimate selfie. This is actually an image. This is actually us. If we can actually start, it's a little self, but and this in and on itself is a reminder of who we really are, and we just give it to the people that are encouraging, like those little gestures that you just made right now. So it's an offer to say the earth is but one country, and all living beings, visible and invisible, big and small, far and close, are citizens. So, thank you. Jai Jagat, glory to the planet, glory to the planet.
Sarve bhavantu sukhina. That's what the Vedas say. May all the world be happy.
Thank you, Shriyam.
Thank you, Rahul, for once more hosting us here. And hopefully next year also we will meet again.
I would love it. And thank you all again for coming.